To the children of narcissistic parents, I have a message for you. And I need to give this message while I'm in the thick of all of this emotion. Okay. It's very normal. The thing is, you're grieving. You're grieving your narcissistic parent. You're grieving the life that you had, the life that you could have had, the parents that you thought they were, and coming to face the reality of who they actually are. You're grieving who you wanted them to be. It's just a huge grieving process of your reality and and the absence of the reality that you were worthy of. So you're grieving the actual reality of your life while also grieving the absence of the reality that you were worthy of, the opposite reality of what you could have experienced. And I want you to know that just because you have certain days where you feel as if you're making great strides in your healing and you're overcoming a lot of your pains, a lot of your wounds, just because you may have a good day or you can even have a good week and everything was just fine, you feel like you were feeling good, you were doing good, and you weren't as triggered. And let's say the next week or the next day, whatever, you have a day where you're just feeling very, very heavy, very, very angry, very agitated. You're feeling this like teeth gritting, agonizing pain. I want you to know that that is very normal and that it is not an indication that you are not healing. So don't think that just because you have a bad day or you relapse or you go back and you feel a lot of pain that you're not healing and you're not moving forward, because you are. Because you are. Healing is like grieving, and grieving is not linear. There are 5 stages of grief, and you're mastering each of those 5 stages, and you will go back and forth between the different stages. So you can go from the depression to the back to the anger, or you can go from the you could be overcoming the denial and then over here in the bargaining, or you can be at the acceptance and then go right back to the anger. You know what I'm saying? So you got to remember that it's a process, and you are overcoming and conquering, surviving and conquering. I survived, I conquered. You are conquering each stage of your grief. And that if you ever have those days where you're just feeling very overwhelmed with all of your emotion, that means that you are healing. Because think of like, I love to speak an analogy. Think of like your pain as like a big giant sack. Like, you know how like Santa Claus, like the sack that Santa Claus would have, it's like a big old red sack and it's full of presents. Okay. So imagine that sack, that huge big sack, is a representation of the pain that you are carrying. And every time you take out a present, that's another incident that you have to face. That's another wound that you have to deal with. That's more pain that you gotta address and deal with. And then once you deal with it, boom, you do. So it's like the more that you are seeping through that, the more that you are healing. But when you're going through and you're taking out the presents, you're taking out the presents represents your wounds. My arm's getting tired. So when you're taking out those wounds, you are healing from certain wounds, but then you're also seeing other wounds that were not present before because they were buried underneath the other presence. So there are certain wounds that were down there that were suppressed, that were not present at first because they had other wounds piled on top of it. So the more that you go dive deep and you're just doing what you can to heal from your pain, you're going to find more wounds, more pain. You're going to find them because you're diving deep within, you're going within yourself. So the more that you are taking away, the more pain that you're finding. So this doesn't indicate that, oh, you're not healing, because you actually are. You're just getting deeper into the depths of how much pain you are actually feeling. Because in order for us to really truly heal from our childhood and our experiences and the atrocities that we went through, we have to deal with, in order for us to know all of what has happened, we have to deal with them one at a time. Because imagine having this sack and carrying it and being like, man, this is super heavy. Like, what's in this bag? Why is it so heavy? What's in it? What, you know how people be like, what's in this bag? Bricks? What you got in here? Why is it so heavy? You have to look within to see what is causing, why is it so heavy? Why is the weight of your pain so heavy? Why is there so much pain? What is the depths of your wounds? So you're diving deep to find out where your pain is coming from, and you're going to be coming face to face with a lot of different scenarios and moments and flashbacks from your past, of your childhood, and that's where you're going to find out where those wounds are coming from. Because you could be thinking of a most recent moment that you had with a narcissistic parent, maybe within the last couple of years. And then you can feel a lot of very sharp pain. It feels like it's just piercing your heart. For you tarot folk, the three of swords, 3 swords in your heart, and you're wondering, why is it so painful? And then you pull out one of those swords, and then you realize that it's something that happened when you were a teenager and you were in high school. And you remember that moment, and you remember how painful it was and how horrific it was. And you relive that moment, and you think, this is where the pain has come from. Because when the pain happened when I was a teenager, I was not emotionally mature enough to understand how to handle that and how to deal with that. I was a child. And because I did not know how to handle it, I just pressed it down, suppressed it, pushed it underneath the surface. I didn't deal with it. And you didn't realize that all the while you were a child and you were a teen, because I really feel like a lot of us, by the time we went through puberty and we were teenagers and we were, becoming, for your girls, you were becoming young women. For the males, you were becoming young men. You're growing into your own. And a lot of times when just the reality of us growing up is very triggering to them, because they realize that our parents are realizing that they can no longer control us as much as they think they can, because we're starting to think for ourselves. Like for you males, for example, when you were young little boys, they felt that they had more control over you, because they're like, they can write it off like, yeah, they're just being boys or whatever. They just listen to whatever I say. But when you started going through puberty and you started growing a lot, you started, growing taller, and at some point, and size is a big thing, because before, when you were a little boy and they had to look down at you, it was easier for them to control you. But then for you young men, when you're going through puberty and you're getting taller and you are getting to a point where you're staring your parent at their like eye to eye, you're the same height as them, or it gets to a point where you're getting taller than them, they realize that they can't intimidate you as much as they can, because you have a size advantage over them. That's triggering to them and that threatens them. And that's why when you were going through a lot of stuff when you're a teenager, that's why they were so hard on you, because they were triggered by the fact that you were growing up, and they realized, like, this is not a child that can walk all over me. This child can take me if they wanted to. I can't put my hands on this child. They could fight me back, and they realize you are more of a threat. And then for my young ladies, when you were growing into your own and you are becoming a young woman, you're having a mind of your own, you're having a voice, you are maturing, and women mature faster than men, but so yes, you're growing, but you're also maturing more. You're starting to see things differently. You're not seeing things like a little girl sees it. You are seeing things through a woman's perspective. And as we go through puberty, our intuition starts to increase. Our discernment starts to increase. So we see things for what they are. We see right through the illusion. We see through the facade and all the bullshit. And we have a voice. And by us listening to our intuition, we were speaking the truth to our parents. And they're wondering, you're a child. You're a teenager. How the hell did you know all of that? How the hell did you know this was happening? How could you figure that out? Woman's intuition. So now that you're becoming a young woman, you're more of a threat, because they can't walk all over you and manipulate you, especially the fathers. They can't manipulate you anymore, because you are a woman that has a mind of her own. So listen, Look back at your childhood and your teen years, especially, and look at some of those moments where they were very horrific to you and deal with those wounds, because a lot of those teen wounds are what's causing you the pain today. Ashe, I love you.